So in this episode, I want to look at what happens when things go wrong. Because this happens in life, doesn't it? It's inevitable that it happens in life. That we have an expectation or a plan of how things are going to be, and then something happens that throws that up all in the air. Or maybe we didn't have a plan or an expectation of anything really. We were just taking along, and then something a bit yuck happens. And we're faced with being in that situation and how we respond to it. And it's really tempting, isn't it, in a situation like that to we have this problem, and then the way we react to it, we can really make the problem worse. You know? Those times where you will do something in reaction to the initial problem, and what you end up with is like another couple of problems, and yet the first problem is still sat there grinning at you. And so I wanted to look at a question that you can ask yourself any time that things are off kilter for you, any time that some external event throws a spanner in the works. And I'm thinking of a time when I had to do some recording. It's quite an important recording. It wasn't me chatting away on these podcasts. It was something that I really had to do, and there was a time constraint. So I set everything up to be able to do this recording. And this was like my window of time in which I could do it. And I sat there and I pressed the record button. And you know what happened next? A helicopter flew outside and just seemed to hover there. Now, who'd have predicted that? At that exact moment, the precise moment that I needed to do this important job that involved recording something. And this was my window of time to do it. Of all the things in all the world, a helicopter pretty much outside my window. And it didn't just fly past, it kind of hovered around. It was clearly having a mooch about, a look for something. And there it stayed, this helicopter. Didn't look like it was ever going to move. And I'm sure you've been in a situation like that before, where you've had this plan, you're under some time pressure, you're under a bit of stress, and then something happens just to make it a little bit worse. And I'm sure that in those situations, like me on that day with the helicopter, I mean, I'll be honest, I was really tempted to lose my shit. But what happened instead is I was able to return. I remembered, thankfully, this question that I'm going to share with you so that you can ask it for yourself in those situations where things go awry. And the question was simply this: what is the best version of this exact moment? So not any other moment, not a moment where the helicopter doesn't show up, but this exact moment where I'm under a time pressure, where I'm stressed, where I have to do this job really quickly because I'm on a deadline. And there's a big helicopter pretty much outside my window, making as much noise as it possibly can, and making it absolutely impossible for me to do this thing that I'm under a deadline over. What is the best version of this exact moment? Because there are lots of things that I could have done. I could have gotten angry. I could have swore into the skies. My blood pressure could have gone up. None of those things would have made the situation any better, however. They probably would have made the situation feel a lot more miserable than it already felt. And so thankfully I remembered that question. What is the best version of this exact moment? And I realised that at the very least it wasn't doing any of those things I was really tempted to do. The best version of that exact moment was to take a breath and to bide my time, to look after myself, even to have a look at the helicopter, the damn helicopter outside my window. After all, it's not every day a helicopter's outside your window. So one of the answers was, go and have a little look at the helicopter, at least satisfy your curiosity. And funnily enough, 3 minutes later, the helicopter did a spin on itself and off it went. And then I was able to do the thing that I was able to do. And in a much better state than if I'd ranted and raved and got hugely angry. Now, I'm not saying that it's not a good thing to rant and rave sometimes, because of course it is. But I find that a useful question when I remember it, because things go awry at times. Even at this very moment, I had a week plan that I was really looking forward to that now can't happen, because life is like that sometimes. It can be cruel and obnoxious. And again, I'm helped by that question to return to that one and say, well, what is the best version of this exact moment? Not some other moment, not some fantasy moment where the bad thing didn't happen, but wherever we are at this exact moment, what is the best version of that? Because once you know the answer to that question, the situation that you're in will still be pretty lousy. But you won't have made it worse. And you'll be in the very best version of that lousy situation than you can possibly be. And you know what? When you're in a lousy situation, don't we need all the help that we can get? Don't we need to be in the best version of that lousy situation rather than an even lousier version of that very same moment? And so that's the question I'm going to leave you with. What's the best version of this exact moment? And the good thing about that question is you don't always have to ask it when things are lousy. Imagine if you ask that when things are going quite well. Things are going quite well, but what's the best version of this exact moment? And then you can take a good moment and make it great. So if you've enjoyed this podcast, please feel free to share it. It's on YouTube now, as well as Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts and Stitcher and all these places you can get your podcasts from. So if you can spread the word, that'd be great. And if you'd like to work with me directly, I'm Alun Parry and I'm the director of the Liverpool Psychotherapy practice. You can find me at liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk. And you can work with me in person in my offices in Rodney Street, or you can work with me online. So until the next one tomorrow, take care of yourselves and thanks for listening.